This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Grand Dawn in Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome to another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is Mark Akins. He is a sales professional and he's working on a book. It's called Challenge Your Perception of Cold Calling. Don't let anxiety hold your success ransom. Welcome to Open Door, Mark.
Thank you very much, Vince. I appreciate this opportunity.
All right. As I do with most of the folks that I speak to, I like to get just an understanding of who you are and where you're from. So I usually start by asking, are you a native Clevelander?
Yes, I am. Born and raised east side of Cleveland. Graduated from Charles F. Brush, 2008.
2008, Charles Brush. That's a high school that you don't hear a whole lot about. What was it like for you to be at Brush, especially being a black person? Because it's in Lyndhurst, right?
Yeah, so they call it South Euclid, Lyndhurst border. So, and what you just said, I do get a lot of people say, how was it, being black there? And because of the Lyndhurst side of it, a lot of people don't realize that if you're in South Euclid, then you also are going to migrate there. And so there was actually a good population of us that were there. And I'll tell anybody, having a school that big, you got kids from all over. I mean, it was just like a little community that was inside of there. So it just kind of depended on what you were looking to do and get out of all of those social interactions, or if you were just there to focus on your schoolwork, you're obviously going to be able to get that. And then one of the greatest things about that particular school district is that the high school had a alternative school that they would send you to if you were in trouble with your credits. They had a credit recovery program. They called it ArcTech. And so I ended up, by the time I got to be in the 11th grade, I only had accumulated 3/4 of one credit, and I needed 22 to graduate by my senior year that next year. So I was able to go through that credit recovery program, and I used to work in the afternoons, and I'd go during the day. My senior year, I would double up my sessions and really just hammer it out and do what I had to do, and I was actually able to graduate on time. So I do got to give them a big shout out for that.
Okay, so you went through that educational experience at Brush, and then I'm assuming you went to college as well.
So I ended up going to trade school. I went to Remington College, not fresh out of high school, but in my 20s, I went to Remington College, and I took up HVAC by trade.
Okay. And so you end up now as a sales professional for the Brewer-Garrett Company. Talk about how that happened.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, I go to the trade school, and it just was a friend of mine. At the time, I had been bouncing from job to job, place to place, and I was around maybe 24, 25. So I was starting to want more of a stable type of thing to build off of. So I went to talk to an older friend of mine, and he said, start thinking about your future and go to Remington for HVAC. And I didn't even know what HVAC was, but I called the school that day. I went to go up there, meet the counselor the next day, or recruiter, and then I ended up starting that next month. And so one of the interesting things about this field is that I didn't know anything but being a technician. And this is what they do teach you, and I guess that they teach you this because this is where, the actual science of the industry is going to be learned, the mechanics of the system, the parts, the operation. But there's a lot of other positions that you could hold within this field. So I was training to be a technician. I did complete it, and I got my universal EPA certification. But networking is a huge part of your success, whether it's going to be in personal success, business, school, whatever. So through networking with one of my actual instructors there, his friend was the vice president of a wholesaler at a supply house. So I went and had an interview there, and I started selling parts, pieces, equipment for residential HVAC systems, heating and cooling systems. And so through working there, I actually ended up going back to Remington College and trying to get some more guys that I went to school with hired at that company because they were pretty fond of me. And they actually had a program at Remington where you could get your associates, and they'd add your year of trade school, and then you go to school online for 1 year. So I had already did the year of trade school. I thought it was a great opportunity, so I went ahead and did that. And then while I was in school for that and updating my resume, the Brewer-Garrett Company, they found me. And so they had a position that was the exact turnaround of what I was doing already. So where I was filling the orders, pulling the orders for parts, pieces, equipment, loading the customers up, I would be the one that was calling in the orders and sending the driver out to pick up the orders. They call it a parts coordinator. So that's what I got into when I started with Brewer-Garrett. And then, of course, I completed my associate's degree program. And just through wanting to constantly grow and wanting to do something that was going to matter for the company, I started to fall in love with the idea of Brewer-Garrett, the idea of our culture. And it was something that I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to kind of help thrive, that culture thrive. And hearing the story of the owner, he started as a sales professional, and to get where he is. So I believed in that. I believed that hard work could get you there. So I wanted to be able to do something that was going to get some recognition for me in the company. So I wanted to work my way up to sales. And, there was a couple of promotions from the parts coordinator, and then I ended up, here in sales.
Okay. So as a parts coordinator, you never actually got into repair or servicing or anything like that of equipment. It was really more of a technical aptitude that you had to apply to the role that you were serving in.
Correct. Yep. So the closest I got to any actual service and repair was just like I said, being hungry for more and wanting to do everything I could for the company. I was single at the time. I would ask if there was any other way I could fill in. So sometimes I would fill in on job sites when we didn't have anybody. And it'd just be light PM, light preventative maintenance. So some filter change and, maybe some cleaning and torquing of some different materials and equipment, but nothing real heavy. Okay. But yeah, just helping out on some things like that, yeah.
The traditional narrative for folks that are going through the school system is to get that diploma and then go to college. And some of us take that route of going to trade school many times because we just make up our minds that, hey, that ain't for me. I'm just curious about what your mindset was when you were on your way out of high school and how you went about determining what you wanted to do in life.
Sure. So, and that's a great question also. So fresh out of high school, what I actually were thinking were the furthest thing from HVAC. as you could probably imagine. So, being a young teenager, of course, one of my biggest things was wanting to entertain and do music. So a lot of the youth, they have entertainment on their mind, whether it be sports, or dance, entertainment with music. So wanting to live that get-rich-quick life and that, that fame, stardom. But the biggest reason I wanted to do was have an influence on people as well. So I initially actually was pushing for that, and it was important to me to graduate high school because a lot of the rap entertainers that I were listening to were always bragging about not graduating and still making more money than the teachers. And, there's a good deal of successful people who don't have education who are not ashamed to say that, but I didn't want to promote that because I come from a family where I was the third one in my generation, and the two before me both dropped out of high school, my older brother and my older cousin. So I didn't want to keep leading that example for my family or for anyone that I may influence, when I became successful in whichever way that God was going to call me. So I pursued that for a while, and I started out in dietary when I was 16 with my first job. So I had been doing a lot of kitchen work. So I bounced around from, dietary aid dishwashers to cooking at different institutions. And then I did a little mental health technician work at a rehab facility. So I kind of just bounced around, but knowing that I wanted something that was going to be, I don't want to say safe, but something you knew was going to be there. The trades are going to be there. In my opinion, the trades are going to be there. So when I heard about this being a trade and just hearing not only getting something behind you that sets you aside. Not anybody could apply for a position to be an HVAC service technician. You had to have something behind you in order to be able to apply and fill a position like that. So I liked the idea of that, and then earning that education. I also liked the idea of being able to do side work outside of the actual company you'd be working for. The idea of maybe being able to start your own company and gather some business. I've always been handy with my hands, and so just the opportunity to be able to work and, earn as much as I could from where I was sitting. That's where I was thinking at the time.
Yeah. And speaking of that traditional route, folks take that traditional route and then they go to college and then they find a job in the field that they chose. But they also end up paying for that education sometimes for the duration of the career that they choose. But conversely, with that trade school situation, I would imagine that perhaps the education is not as expensive, but there are monetary rewards for working within those trades. Can you give folks an idea of what one of those technicians might make and how you got sold on the income possibilities within HVAC?
Sure. Yeah. So, of course, with me never being directly a technician, I was never offered a technician's wage, but I do know technicians, of course, and I work hand in hand with technicians. And these guys are happy with what they're making. I mean, if you're going to get into this field, the upset that I would say to people is that it will take you a little bit of time, but it doesn't have to take you a lot of time to make the money that you may want to make. So when I was in trade school, they would always say, hey, you guys can be making upwards of $50,000 doing this. So, coming from a family where I didn't have a father, I never knew my father, so we didn't have him in the household. We didn't have a man in the household at all. And my mom, she was on, Section 8 and food stamps, so we didn't have any real income coming in. So hearing that, hey, I'm going to do 12 months and come out making $50,000, this had us all stoked. But at the end of the day, it's the earning potential. And it can be higher than that, honestly. So what I would say is to take caution, anyone who wants to get into the trades, because you have to work your way up. But the way I always looked at it, because when I got my first position coming out of the trade, I was still in the trade school actually, but on my way out, when I got the position for the counter salesman at the wholesaler, I was making $12 an hour, working 6 days a week. So of course I was getting overtime and I was getting paid every week. So, I mean, it was still about $400, every week, which from where I was, that helped me get back on my feet. It helped me get my license back. It helped me get my own place. It helped me start to work towards paying on a car. But what I will tell people is, it depending on the route you take and how hard you work, I mean, it could be within 5 years that you'll be making $50,000 plus. So that did happen with me through the route that I ended up being blessed to accept by going, back and getting the associates and getting the attention of this company, and then, working with this company and having the drive to push forward and wanting more. And I would just say also, whether it's going to be in the trades or anything that anyone decides to do, I think that you should always make it clear that you want more. I pulled the general manager of my company when I was a parts coordinator, and I talked to him one-on-one. I talked to the operations manager that was under him, and I talked to my direct supervisor. And I would tell them all, hey, I feel like I'm doing a great job with this. Ask them how they think I'm doing, because the review is one thing, but you really want to ask these people so they know that you care, because the review is going to be a requirement most times by the company. And, they tell you, hey, you're doing a great job. You're not doing anything wrong. Keep doing what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. So my next thing was, what should I be focusing on so that I could secure a position above this? Or what should I be trying to learn, or who should I be getting mentored by or talking to maybe understand what some of the next steps could be, or kind of figure out the way that I want to go.
Yes.
So,
and
once you figure that out, then the money, you can start figuring out what the money may look like too.
Yeah, that's what they call in the corporate side of things career development, and it's really kind of it's great that you had that mindset, because if you don't speak up, you'll end up doing that same job for several years and not getting anywhere. Mark Akins is a sales professional with Brewer-Garrett, and he's also a soon-to-be author. We're going to talk to him about that and the fact that he just recently became a father. Great conversation. We'll be back with more Open Door with Vince Robinson and our guest, Mark Akins, right here on 95.9 FM, WOVU, Burton-Bell Carr Community Radio. Back in a minute.
If you need legal help with housing, employment, benefits, domestic safety, or another fundamental need, please visit Legal Aid's website at www.lasclev.org anytime to apply for assistance. You can also call during Legal Aid's intake hours, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 to 4 p.m., or Tuesday and Thursday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Call 216-687-1900.
You gotta listen, cause you gonna miss it. 95.9. Those are the digits where you find good music, good conversation, good information. Number one station, taking over Cleveland, not just for the weekend. 24/7, day into the evening. We keep on feeding you. Just keep eating solutions on the radio. That's what we be dealing. WOVU 95.9. Don't miss out. You better catch this vibe.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is Mark Akins. He's a sales professional, and he's got a book coming out called Challenge Your Perception of Cold Calling. Don't Let Anxiety Hold Your Success Ransom. We've been talking about what it is like to be involved in the trades, and one thing that I can say for sure is if you have technical abilities with respect to heating, ventilation, and cooling, there will be no shortage of work for you because of this thing called planned obsolescence and the fact that furnaces and air conditioners and hot water tanks, they don't last forever. So if you got that side work, you'll never have a shortage of jobs. I'm telling you, as a homeowner, it's nearly impossible to find somebody, So you end up having to go to the big companies that are going to charge you a whole lot more money to get the job done, or maybe you just look up and find something on Groupon, huh? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you started on the technical end, and then you went into the sales end, and you were very intentional. We talked about your desire for career development. How was it for you entering the field of sales?
Oh, wow. Well, I tell you, I've always had this attitude, and ever since I could ever remember, and one thing that's kind of sharp in my memory is just like seeing my grandfather cut the lawn, at like 6, 7 years old. And I'm like, I can do it, let me do it. And I've always been that type of kid, and that type of person. I always feel like that I can do it, And so I would say, too, be careful with the youth when you look at a youth that is doing something like that. Don't think it's a copycat type of thing. He or she may just be trying to establish the fact that they can do it and show you that they can do it as well. But so with that attitude, I felt like, hey, of course I can get in here and do it. And then I didn't realize that there was any other aspect to sales besides being personable. So I felt like I was personable. I can communicate, and then communicating isn't just speaking, obviously. It's being able to listen aggressively and hold a conversation, a healthy conversation, where there's going to be understanding between the two of you. And so that's all I expected to do, but I didn't realize what you'd have to do to get to that point, so to be able to get to a conversation and understanding, to be able to get in front of someone, we had to do something called cold calling. So this is something I had never heard of. And so a cold call is just any cold interaction, if you're going to ask me. So when it comes to networking, when it comes to dating, they have these dating sites these days. And even an interview, when you go in for an interview with a prospective company, that's a cold call. If you don't know this person, if you've never met this person before, I look at all of that as cold calling. And so the cold calling I had to do was going to be between cold emails, if you can get someone's email, cold calls on the actual phone, and then just walking to somebody's office, walking into somebody's building and asking for them and trying to get their attention and, leaving some information or leaving your card, however that's going to go. So grasping that was, I would say, a great challenge for me, because it's not as simple as you think to just pick up the phone. Hey, can I talk to Mr. Vince? Sure, here he is. Hey, this is Vince. Hi, Vince, how you doing? I'm Mark over at Brewer-Garrett. Oh, Mark, I'm so happy to talk to you. Come on in. Let's have a conversation. Doesn't work anything like that. So I would just say the biggest thing was learning that it's no different than interacting with people walking down the street. If you're trying to engage someone in a conversation, not everyone's going to talk to you. If you're trying to get 100 people to agree with you, they're not going to agree with you. So just kind of realizing that being over the phone or behind a computer, they can't see you. They don't know you. So when they do reject you, you can't internalize it. You got to just learn how to forgive them. I always say when you get rejected, you just learn how to forgive people, because that's how you move on. If you do have a great reason to be calling them, a great product, a great service, then you have no reason to look down on yourself, because they don't know what they've just rejected. They don't know that they rejected a possible new relationship with a great friend, the value that comes with it, which will be that company, the service and the products, what money they could be saving, how more efficiently their operation could be going. So you can't harvest that. You have to forgive them, and you have to be able to move on, and keep going on to the next chance. And don't always just chalk it up as a loss and say, hey, I'm never going to call this person again. Just put it on your schedule to call them in a month or a week, however you feel, maybe even 2 months. And sometimes I would even ask people when they say no, I say, hey, is it okay if I check back in with you in a couple of months? Don't forget about me. And they say, okay. And whether they're going to dodge the call or not, it's better for you to be able to have that confirmation if you're trying to learn how to deal with the hustle and bustle of making these calls and these cold interactions, in my opinion.
Yes. Well, we live in a world that has a high volume of telemarketing. And as a result of that, sometimes when that cold call is made or placed or whatever, there might be a little hostility on the other end of the phone. So, you talked about rejection, and I do know that, 9 times out of 10, that person is probably going to say no, especially if they weren't expecting the call or, however that number got to them, and then they get the call. A lot of times it comes out of nowhere. You really have to have thick skin and not take it personal and not internalize it, as you say. I just wonder, how you have that mindset that allows you to not internalize rejection.
Great question. So this is where the book came into place. So long story short, there was a book that I read that was supposed to help me pull in the meetings. And I didn't agree with his tactics, nor did they work out well for me. So there's a couple of things. You got to get past the gatekeeper. There's always going to be a gatekeeper, that's going to be your secretary or your receptionist, maybe even a personal assistant. So being able to get past that person is one thing. And so this is one of the first areas where I challenged my perception of things. So I have what I call a secret to perception, because right now the world is obsessed with secrets, secret to love, secret to getting rich, secrets. So I'm here to reveal a secret to everyone too. When it comes to perception, I look at it as it's not what you see is what you get. It's how you see it is why you get it. So if you're always looking at things in a negative light, you're going to get a negative light back. And when it comes to your perception, you want to challenge your perception. I can't change anything for you, but I'm trying to get you to challenge it. If you challenge your perception, then you'd also realize, like you just said, on the other end of the phone, there's another human. So where they say misery loves company, I say comfort loves company as well. So if you're able to speak with someone on the phone and you make them feel comfortable, don't you think you have a better chance of them at least giving you a few more seconds or minutes on the phone? And do you think you have a better chance of meeting and sitting alone with someone, because if you want to have a meeting with them, you intend to be alone with this person, unless they're going to bring some other valuable people in the room who could be part of the decision-making process. So do you think you're going to get someone in that room who's going to be comfortable with you or uncomfortable with you? So if you are uncomfortable with making these calls, and if you are uncomfortable with speaking to strangers, then you're going to make them uncomfortable. You're going to be able to transfer emotions through the way you talk, your volume, your inflection, your tone. You're going to be able to transfer a lot of things through the phone. So what I just started doing, and it was just through me in my mind, I started realizing that the same way people say, hey, when first thing somebody see when they look at you is your shoes, or the first thing people look at is how you're dressed, how you're groomed. You don't have any of that over the phone. You know, some people say, hey, I'll go to LinkedIn and try to send them a request so they can see what I look like first. But yeah, but who's to say any of that's going to work? So what you do have is communication and conversation over the phone. And communication can happen without conversating on the phone as well. Depending on if you get on the phone, you pause too long, you know, if you're stumbling, if you're stuttering, if your tone is too low, too high, too aggressive, not aggressive enough. I mean, they're going to judge any of that before a conversation can happen, because a lot of times it's the familiarity is why they're looking to, and judge is a harsh word, but people are using their own paradigm to be able to get comfortable with you. So to be able to listen to you and think that you might sound like you're of the same gender, race, around the same age group, that people feel more comfortable with that, you know. And it's like I say in my book, you know, a lot of people would say, there's no way you can tell how old someone is or what race they are over the phone or just from hearing their voice. And if someone was to give you a call and they talk to you on the phone for 30 seconds and they described how they would viciously attack you and your loved ones and how they're going to ruin your life, and, you know, when the police talk to you, they're going to want to know how this person sounds. And then you'd know, because you would have been listening close enough to be able to give the police of what you think they sounded like. Well, this may be a good or a bad thing when it comes to cold calling, but they're going to do it as well to make sure that they're comfortable. So just knowing that when you reach out to a gatekeeper, that you don't want to just be so pushy, because what if this person will get in trouble for giving you to their boss or to whomever in the company for patching that call through? So you want to make them feel comfortable with giving the call to that other person. And then when you get this person on the phone, you always want to respect everybody's time and assume that they're busy, is what I would say. And then if you don't get them, leave a meaningful voicemail, but always follow the instructions that they tell you to leave on the voicemail. They tell you to leave your name, your number, the time of call, the date. Make sure you do that. And make sure that the quality of your call doesn't drop on the voicemail. I've had a guy tell me once that when he hears salesmen on the voicemail, they sound more relieved that they got the voicemail, and he never calls them back. So just, like I said, the quality of the call, and then realizing there's someone on the other end of the phone who's dealing with this cold interaction as well, and kind of taking on their perception, you know, that you're a stranger calling them. You know their name. They don't know your name. They don't know if you're, and like you said, it's the age or telemarketers are getting through to you everywhere. I just dodged a telemarketing call. So they don't know you. You know their name. You know where they work. You knew they'd be there. Sometimes they have these websites like Zoom Info where you get a cell phone number or an email address. So it could be a lot of anxiety on their end as well. So you just really want to make people feel comfortable and be as professional as possible, and give them that sense of entitlement to where if they really don't want to be bothered with you, that you're not going to pester them unless they say, yes, you know, you can follow up within a couple of weeks, couple of months, or whatever the case may be.
Well, you know, Mark, listening to you, it sounds like what you know is not something that came out of a textbook. It seems like you just have this intrinsic understanding of human behavior and human beings and what might work best. I know also you have the advantage in terms of your calls. I'm assuming that you're reaching out to companies or entities that have an interest in the products that you have to offer. So it might not be as hard a sell as it might be in other areas. But fascinating conversation and hungry to learn more. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is Mark Akins. He is the author of Challenge Your Perception of Cold Calling, Don't Let Anxiety Hold Your Success Ransom. And based on what I just heard, you might be earning some dividends with the skills that you learned from this book. We're going to talk more about that when we get back. This is Burton Bell Carr Community Radio. Back in a few.
We here at WOVU 95.9, Our Voices United, are about to bring to you a crystal clear sound on our terrestrial frequency. Matter of fact, you're going to have to turn your volume down. 100% stereo, bass knocking in your speakers, rocking music all day long with the WOVU website and the app. The upgrade is going to 192,000 bits.
Baby, explain to me again how clear that is.
It's like going from HD to 4K.
I wonder.
It's going to be clearer than your mama calling your name when the street lights come on.
Ooh, I think I like the sound of that.
Tune in, check us out. We got some new sounds coming your way with the same great content we've been having. That good Cleveland music, that good inspiration, that good informative community information that we have for everybody out there. So check us out with the new sounds. WOVU 95.9 FM, BBC Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson and my conversation with Mark Akins, the author of Challenge Your Perception of Cold Calling, Don't Let Anxiety Hold Your Success Ransom. Mark is a sales professional. He's with a company called Brewer-Garrett, and he is achieving success with this company, and hopefully, and I'm just going to put it out there, achieving success with a book that is to come out very soon, and hopefully you'll hear about it right here on 95.9 FM WOVU. Mark, you shared with me that not only are you a sales professional, but when you were younger, you had aspirations of basically entertaining folks. This is another aspect of who you are. Talk about the pursuit of other things besides sales.
Okay, perfect. So once again, just having that I can do it attitude. So I started writing poetry and music when I was 11 years old, and it was something that I really thought, was the end-all, be-all. I didn't see anything aside from that. So when I was 17, I ended up, and I used to record, off of friends' computers or cassette tapes. We put tissue or tape over the bottom of a cassette tape, those little slots at the bottom, and, you could record right over anybody's music. So my mom used to really love that. But so we would we just record little CDs, pass them around the school here and there, and I actually ended up running into a guy when I was about 17 and took me to a real studio, and from there I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, So I always had a way with words, and one of the highlights, rest in peace to the late great Silver B. He actually had a radio show, the Roundtable Edutainment Roundtable. So he let me do the intro to his radio show. That was actually a pretty cool thing. And so just through promoting the music, and once I graduated, started traveling around Ohio a little bit. We print up CDs, pass it out, and then I took a trip to Atlanta before I got into the trades. That was like my last hoorah. I quit my job, and I actually used to work at a factory, and so they told me I was up for this promotion, and then the supervisor right above me told me I was going to get it. His boss said I was going to get it, and they brought in a white guy, and so they gave him the job, and they asked me to train him, and I thought it was a slap in the face because it's like, wow, if I'm not good enough for it, how could I be good enough to teach someone? But I did. I trained him. I would never teach him everything I knew because I felt like that he didn't want to be there, and, it got to a point where he was a no-call, no-show, and my first day there, before I didn't even know about the clock-in system or anything. I was 1 minute late, and they gave me 2 points. And there was no one in the office or anything when I got there, but they never took it off as long as I was there. And he was a no-call, no-show. Like 3 months after he was there, he's supposed to get 8 points. The supervisor told me that he must have made a mistake. We worked 6 days a week, though, so I don't know how that could happen. And he said he wasn't going to give him any points, and he didn't. So, I took my last check, and I said, why am I wasting my time working here? Let me go out here. Let me make it happen. Let me go to Atlanta. I took 300 CDs. I had put together a compilation of some different guys that I knew, and I called it Damn Right I'm From Cleveland. And so I put together a little compilation CD, and then I also had a solo CD that I had put together on my own that I called Just Listen. And so I took, 300 copies of, mix and match those CDs and went out there. And so it's not like the stories tell you, where you go out there, you just on the streets, you pass out CDs and someone discovers you. It didn't go quite like that. So it's just that I was out there. I believed in myself. And when I ran out of money and my motel ran out and all of that, when I come back to Cleveland, I told myself, now, if I could go out there and I could believe in myself and I could make it happen, and pass them out and be brave, then I should be able to do that here. And so I started networking here in Cleveland. And Kent and Angelica, God bless their hearts, they actually had me on their show at 1490 AM on Radio 1 a few different times. And that was the first time I ever heard my biggest single, No Reason, was actually on the radio. They played it on their show. So that was great. And I started doing, little shows here and there and all of that jazz. But what it came down to, and I started making some connections with people, but what it came down to is that I needed something, like I said, solid and kind of sustainable. And when I found out about the trade school, that's when I started pursuing something that I knew would be a little more solid at the moment. I didn't want to keep bouncing around from place to place, like I said, and woman to woman and all of this, and just meeting people. I wanted to be able to, pick up and do what I need to do, and to be able to still work. I was working 2 jobs and going to school. It was tough to still be able to be everywhere. People were calling me and do the music like I wanted to be doing it, but I wasn't getting any money, like talking about it off of it. I had made some digital sales and streams through TuneCore, and I needed more than that to survive. So this is when I just started to put my drive into gear for the trades and ultimately sales.
Yes. Well, success in the music business is very difficult to attain unless you are in complete control of your product. And what happens in a lot of cases is that folks bring their intellectual property to a third party and then they capitalize on it, and you see very little of it. I mean, when you look at the streaming platform, for instance, Apple Music, Spotify, all those platforms, the artists end up getting exploited because they receive so little for each spin. So that music business, it's really a tough nut to crack, and folks look at it as being glamorous and whatnot, but they say it's 90% business and 10% show. And I think you kind of found that out as you attempted to pursue success in that realm. I was just curious about why you chose to take those 300 CDs to Atlanta as opposed to selling them here, where perhaps more people might have awareness of you.
And that's a great question as well. So we were doing, when I was younger, I met, through my first job, I met a guy that ended up being like a big brother to me. He was 10 years older than me, so we'd hang out, and he was like a big brother. And he knew another guy who was about 8 years older than him, who was kind of like a mentor. And so that guy, he really believed in my music. There was a guy from Cleveland, H Flow. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. And so he ended up getting with Floyd Mayweather's Filthy Rich Records. This is way back in like the early 2000s. And so the guy that, the guy that was like my brother James, he put me with Nino. And Nino actually helped promote, H Flow. They were like cousins or something like that. And so he was looking for another project. So we did promote around Cleveland, Columbus, Akron, Springfield, out of all places, a couple of different places around here. And like I said, I put together the Damn Right I'm from Cleveland compilation, so we would get that around, and still some internet promotions, and it just was, to a rapper, Atlanta had started to develop that what New York is to a theater, enthusiast, or to what L.A. or Hollywood is to an actress or an actor. So that's what kind of drew me to Atlanta. And just at that time, they were just booming. There were just a lot of different art. And still today, they have a lot of artists coming out of the South and representing strong for Atlanta. So it just felt like that's where you wanted to be. You get out there, you get your music in the strip club. I did stop by Magic City, and try to get my music in there. I don't know if they've ever played it, but just that was a dream, that you always think that someone's going to just hear you and just whisk you away. And like you said, it's really 95% business. And if you don't know anything about sales, marketing, networking in that industry, it's going to be real easy to get taken advantage of. So
yeah. And speaking of the strip clubs, a lot of artists, they get launched into the stratosphere because their music went over well in the strip club. So, no disrespect to that platform or paradigm. And then the second thing is as you said, Atlanta is a place where at least the perception is there's a collaborative atmosphere amongst artists in that city, contrasted with Cleveland, where they say the crabs in the barrel syndrome exists, and, you don't have the same collaborative spirit. So, I was curious, and you definitely answered the question. Atlanta was the place to be. And I think to a great extent it still is, because it's like the music capital of the South. Nashville is like, the capital of country music. But then, thanks to Babyface in L.A. and other things that happened in the early stages of the evolution of Atlanta as that music spot, there's just been a lot of positive energy coming out. And then you look at the artists that came out of Atlanta, Outkast, Ludacris, and others. It definitely was the place to be, and it still is. So in light of all of that, and we've established that you've got this book related to sales, do you have any plans to continue the trajectory on the music end of things?
Well, you know what? And because my inner child actually really enjoyed you asking me that question, I'm happy to answer it. So actually, what I would love to do, if an opportunity presented itself, and, of course, luck is preparation meeting opportunity. So I would still definitely write for other artists. I am not willing to sacrifice my image that I have as a professional now to entertain, but I am still, willing to partake in writing music. I did write hip hop, R&B. I have a somewhat of a country song that I actually did, believe it or not, with the live guitar. So just all type of different stuff. I can write a song about absolutely anything. The song that I did with Silver B for his radio show introduction, he gave me a call and he says, I want you to do a song for introduction for my radio show. He says, I'm going to give you a list of names and cities. And he says, you put this in the song and you're some kind of a genius. You put all this in a song, you're some kind of a genius. I put it all in one verse. I was able to put it together. I believe I'm really good with my words. And like I said, it's poetry and music the same that I write fluently. And I also had a talent for just how soon I'd be able to put something together. So even if it was managing a talent, but anything on the back end, I wouldn't mind being a part of, managing talent, writing some music, coaching in any type of way. But yes. I definitely would still be open to something like that.
Well, you just recently became a father. So with that said, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be going on tour anytime soon anyway. So, that happens to a lot of folks in the music business. Fatherhood kind of changes things. But I'm happy to hear that you're a father, and you shared with us that you grew up without one. So I know that there are a lot of good dynamics in place right now, because my idea is that you will be the father that you didn't have. We're going to talk more about fatherhood in light of the newness of it on you, and we're going to get into a little bit more of what the future for Mark Akins looks like when we return. You're listening to Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU, Burton Belcar Community Radio. We'll be right back.
Wow, I wish there was a way I could listen to WOVU when I wasn't in the city.
But there is.
Really?
Yes. You can go to WOVU.org. Go to our webpage. It's got everything on all the shows.
Eric Nolan is in the building.
This is Rachel Hill, the host of Her in the Huddle.
This is Delvis Valentine. On listen.
Yo, what it do? It's your girl DJ Coco Z.
Hey, I am Talitha Kube from Let's Talk About It.
Hi, this is DJ Black Unicorn.
WOVU.org. Tap the app. Listen live.
This is WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Belcar Community Radio.
We're back on Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is Mark Akins, the author of Challenge Your Perception of Cold Calling, Don't Let Anxiety Hold Your Success Ransom. It's quite a mouthful there, but yeah, it's a key to success in sales. And if you can succeed in sales, you can be very, very successful. I know once upon a time I worked in radio, and I'm one of those in front of the mic type people. But when I look down the hall, you know, the sales executives were the ones that were driving the fancy cars to work, and we were driving the raggedy cars to work. So there's a lot of money in sales, trust me on that. So again, success in sales can lead to success in life. You recently became a father, and you, in your interview with me, have talked about, you know, your younger days and, you know, the women and everything, but then something happened and it caused you to settle down. So a beautiful person came into your life and y'all came together and you created life. How has life changed for you in light of that?
Oh my gosh, it's changed for the better in a million different ways. So one of the things, even like I said, with me having, you know, that go-getter attitude, that self-starter attitude, that I can do it attitude, when you find your person, you know, like I found my wife, and when you have that person that believes in you as well, I mean, there's nothing like that. You know, they say behind every great man there's a strong woman, or behind every strong man there's a stronger woman, however that goes. It's both. They're both right in my case. She's definitely a beautiful person, and you know, we're humans, right? Nothing's perfect as far as everyone else could assume it to be. But like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so is perfection. So it's perfect for us. It's been working out for us, and it's only been getting better as time progresses. And, you know, she supports everything I do. So if I was to, you know, tell her, hey, I'm leaving my job right now, and, you know, I'm gonna jump off this roof, and I'm gonna fly to India, and I'm gonna, you know, be a elephant trainer. I'm not going to say there isn't going to be a long conversation behind it or some clarification, but she believed in me. If I was able to tell her why I was doing it and why I thought it would be a success, she believed in me and she'd stand by me, because we've already been through some conversations and some times like that. So got to love that, you know, and I proposed to her June 24th. We got married, and that's actually both of our birthdays. We share a birthday on June 24th, and we got married on our birthday. And then we just brought our son into the world November 15th of this year. So, and he's my junior, Mark Akins Jr., so definitely excited about that. But I always tell people, you know, you can become what you never had. So just like you said, you know, I never had a father or a father figure in my life and in my household growing up. And I lost my grandfather at a young age as well. So that doesn't mean that I can't be a great father to my child. You know, I do enjoy mentoring and helping out with the youth where I can. And I actually was just got the news that I was accepted into the 100 Black Man organization. So I'll be getting pinned at the gala coming up December 10th. And so I'm big on mentoring and giving back. So I know that, you know, just because I didn't have a father doesn't mean I don't understand what one is, or what I would think I could have benefited from one. I think that just being there and putting some real effort into learning and understanding your kid as a person, and just making sure that you tailor your and again, this is still fresh to me, but I feel like learning and knowing them is how you make sure you tailor how you parent them, and just be that person's parent. Like my mom has 3 sons, and like she always say, yeah, hey, I'm not the best mother. There's a lot of bad mothers out there and stuff like that, and blah blah blah. And, like I told her, you don't have to worry about being the best mother to each one of us. You just be Mark's mother, you be Robert's mother, you be Darrell's mother. That's it. We are 3 different people, so you're going to have different relationships with us, and you just be there and have the relationship that you have with us. There's no real scale on how all 3 of us are going to grade you, if you ask me. I don't know how everyone else goes, but so yeah, absolutely. You can definitely become what you never had, and if you never had someone support you, doesn't mean you don't deserve to be supported. If you never had someone love you, it doesn't mean you don't deserve to be loved. And just having that type of attitude can get you really, really far. And as long as you believe in love, you'll find it. If you believe in family, then you'd have one. As long as you know that person is out there for you, then you're going to run into that person. Yes. That's how I look at things.
Well, I speak from experience because my father never knew his father, and as a result, having a family was really important. I'm the fruit of his idea about that because I'm the firstborn, but I can just look at his life and see, that intentionality about being a great father paid off, because he had me, he had my brother, he had my sister, and all 3 of us have gone on to success in life. So, I can see the same thing happening or unfolding in your situation. As you described your background and you talked about the whole idea of being a father, I just wondered if there was anything that you did to prepare for fatherhood.
Well, I feel like that understanding myself a lot better was one of the biggest things. So you have to put some real effort into understanding who you are and accepting who you are, and then chasing who you want to become. So whether that's going to be through your affirmations, your journaling, your self-reflection, writing letters to yourself. I do a lot of different stuff. I think that just really locking in on who I am to my own self, who I am to my wife, who I am to coworkers, people around me, and realizing that if I weren't in the room, what kind of impression do I want to leave and have when I'm in that room, to where when I'm not in that room, or if my children or their friends were to hear someone talk about me, what would they say? Just starting to think about things in that light, and also just being patient, working on my patience, knowing that's going to be a big part of it. Also making sure that I'm structured, and it's not that I was never into being healthy or being fit, but that's one thing I started taking a whole lot more serious. When she was pregnant with my son, I started getting on a serious workout regimen, and I'm still on that. So, and you're going to see the results, and you're going to love that. So that's always going to be. If you're a man or a woman, but definitely guys, you want to get some frustrations out, build some muscles and get stronger. That's a good way to just go ahead and really improve yourself mentally, physically, spiritually. Locking in on my spirituality, making sure that I talk to God and I have a clear understanding of my beliefs, and also realizing what do I want to be able to add to this child's life, trying to just do my best to figure out what kind of value do I want to bring, food, shelter, clothes. Doesn't even take an actual human to do that, to provide that for you. There are children in orphanages. The government can provide you with food assistance, housing assistance. So just realizing what I am going to want to bring to the table and want to be able to bring to the table. And like I said, just honing in on who I am and being a better person every day, better and better every day is what I'm trying to do.
Yes. And I think that along with that is just the notion or the idea that you're not just living for you anymore. You're now responsible for someone else, and they're not in a position to care for themselves until they get to a certain place in life. So it's incumbent upon you to be the best person that you can be. And at the same time, that young person is going to be observing you and internalizing the things that they observe about you. So it's, for you to be in good shape, for you to be healthy, for you to have a clear mind. All of those things are going to pay dividends in the investment that you place in your child.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I'm also hearing in what you're sharing with me is the whole idea that you can motivate others to do what you do. Is motivational speaking, is that a part of your repertoire?
100%. At some point, I would like to do full-time speaking. With the whole challenger perception thing, I don't want that to stop at cold calling. I think that's how a lot of people could really do better in life altogether, to be able to challenge their perception on things. And then also, yes, the motivation. I mean, I've come from, like I said, just the financial circumstances of being young. And like I said, the not having the family, the money, my older brother didn't graduate, my cousin didn't graduate. And, actually my mom, when I was 15, she didn't think I would graduate either. She said that she would sign for me to drop out of school. So just always having to believe in myself and develop that mind state. When I was 22 years old, I shot myself, and, having to really evaluate if I wanted to survive and call the ambulance when I was laying there dying. And then to go through the recovery mentally and physically, because once you get out of the hospital, you're back into the world, and I didn't want to, once I realized that I wanted to choose life over that, I didn't want any medicines. I didn't want any psychiatrists, therapists, and there's nothing wrong with anyone who sees any of those people or who takes any type of medicine or chemical treatment. There's absolutely nothing wrong with any of that, but I was able to make it out of that dark time to where I am now without having to deal with any of it. So I do 100% believe that I can lead and talk to people, help and motivate people to become the best version of themselves. But first, help them figure out what that is. What is the best version of you? You can only be your best. You can only be the best when you become your best. And you can only be your best. That's all you need to worry about. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that either. So just any way that I'm able to help, I do speak to some youth here and there when I get an opportunity to. But, yeah, this is what I'd love to be able to do. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I have a few folks that I know that are into motivational speaking and are plugged into networks. So I'm going to have to share that information with you so that you can get plugged in and get to the next level. I can't believe that we've been in this conversation for almost an hour and you just dropped that bombshell on me. I really don't have time to unpack that, but you went from shooting yourself to being someone to motivate others to live the best possible life that they can. And I think that is really an admirable trait. It speaks a lot to, the way that you were brought up. When you told me that you went to Brush High School, I'm just imagining that here is this young black kid living the Will Smith life, in Bel Air or whatever, and going to this school. But then you said there was no father in the house, and you said that, you had someone else in the house that didn't graduate from high school, and single parent family and all of that. So to go from that to where you're sitting now is a great accomplishment. So I want to commend you for your stick-to-itiveness and your motivation to succeed. I think it's exemplary, and I think folks can learn a lot from that. Mark Akins, you are going to be putting a book out very soon called Challenge Your Perception of Cold Calling. Don't Let Anxiety Hold Your Success. Ransom. I'm going to put it out there that this will be a success for you and that you will have great success in life. I thank you for joining me on Open Door today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This was great.
All right. And if folks want to reach out to you, how can they get to you?
All right. So LinkedIn, if you guys want to reach me on LinkedIn, it's Mark Akins, MarkAkins. And then also, I do have a TikTok where I drop some tidbits, motivational things, whether it be for sales or just life in general. I really enjoy dropping those tidbits. So it's going to be Mark Akins, or you search the handle. It's at Challenge Your Perception. So challenge, CHALLENGE, Your Perception, PERCEPTION. Challenge Your Perception.
All right. With that, know yourself, love yourself, and be yourself. Make today your best day, Cleveland and the rest of the world. Peace.